Welcome everyone to the Average Ontario Anglers Fishing Podcast. This is episode 21.
Wow.
And you know how, you probably remember the show Home Improvement, right?
Yeah.
So Tim the Tool Man. I was thinking of an interesting way to introduce the show. So we're going to rob a bit from him, be like, welcome to AoA. With Tim the Tool Man, groan thing. I don't know what that was, but
You need to practice your Tim Allen impression. That was pretty good. Kind of sounded like Goofy, though.
That's true. I can do a pretty good Goofy, but that's for another day.
Okay.
So, moving on from that atrocity, we have the unbelievable fishing lore part 2.
Part 2
is the topic for this episode. Jesse has a triple T he's going to be doing for this one as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start off with that. And we also have a very exciting sponsor for this episode, which I'm excited about it. And I'm sure everyone else will be too once they find out who that is.
Oh, it's a super special one.
So start us off, Jesse, with our triple T.
All right, so triple T. You know what I always say? I love it. Andrew hates it. So we're going to keep doing it.
I like the segment, just not the acronym.
Triple T. Anyway, so triple T is techniques to try if you're just tuning in for the first time. So what we normally do is we talk about a technique that either we enjoy doing or a technique that we just started trying and we've had success with. So if you know anything about me, you know that I love flipping and fishing slop and heavy cover largemouth fishing. And one thing that I had really good success with the last time I went fishing, which was last weekend, was flipping a tube. You ever flipped a tube?
I have tried in the past before I knew what I was doing with it, and then I just didn't do that anymore.
All right. So I'm going to explain why flipping a tube, it's so cool compared to fishing a normal, flipping bait, like a beaver or something like that. So I actually just grabbed my rod from...
You decided to bring a 7-foot what rod? 7'3" rod into a very small recording space and be like,
yeah,
this will be fine.
Ow. Just kidding. So anyway, normally when you're flipping, generally when I'm flipping, I'm just going to be flipping like a beaver style bait or maybe, a stickworm, something like that. But I see all these people on YouTube, they'd have videos like flipping a tube, fishing a flipping tube, and they're like, the action's insane. And I think over the years, I've obviously tried it, but I don't think I've ever actually stuck with it.
Yeah.
Because what I did is I bought some of these tube hooks, these Owner Phantom tube hooks. They have this cool weight insert.
I love Owner hooks.
Oh, they're so nice.
So sharp.
And I went to one of the Kawartha Lakes the other day, and I was flipping around stumps. And the water wasn't very deep, so I was like, okay, I don't want to flip a super heavy weight. I want the bait to just kind of glide down. So I tied on a 3.5-inch tube and just a 1/4 ounce weight. Mm-hmm. That was before I tried these Owner tubes with the weight built in. This is just a regular Texas rig. And man, they have the craziest action. See this tube? It doesn't just go straight to the bottom. Like most Texas rigs, when you flip them out, they just pretty much go straight to the bottom. Mm-hmm. These things have a crazy spiral glide on the way down. It's super cool, and they're very slow because they're hollow too, but they're slow, so you can actually hop them around. So as your bait hits the bottom, if you just twitch your rod up, the tube just glides up and then glides off to the side.
Well, it's the same weight system as a regular tube jig,
yeah,
right? So it's still going to have that glide.
It's so
the
random.
Only difference is just the hook placement makes it weedless, right?
Exactly, and these are incredibly weedless. But I was noticing, I was playing around with it. I was fishing in shallow water, 3-4 feet even. And you can actually walk the dog with these underwater.
And that's
short
cool.
Twitches on the way back. Because I was watching a video and the guy's like, you should not just fish a tube jig, flip it, but you can also swim it back to the boat, which is something that I never even thought of. And I tried it. And it works. It actually works. But I was surprised. I know you could probably flip any bait and catch largemouth. They're not that intelligent. But the action on this
You just offended everyone from Texas.
Yeah. Well, bass are harder to catch down there. But I was just blown away by just the random action of the bait. You'll twitch it, you'll pull up your rod a bit, the tube will go up, and it'll drift to the left. And the next time you twitch it up, it'll drift to the right. It's so random. It's not just like a regular Texas rig that goes straight up and down like a yo-yo. And it just blew me away. And what I did was I was just Texas rigging it on an extra wide gap hook, a 5/0, I think. And then I actually went and I bought some of these Owner Phantom tube hooks with the weight that has the internal weight.
Yeah.
So when you do that, the weight's inside of the tube and it's even more weedless. and streamlined
Yeah.
than before.
And it will, because it's not in front, it will
glide better.
glide more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was a quick little, maybe a technique that you should try, because maybe, and I know we always say this, maybe the fish haven't seen it in your area. Because like whenever, like I love fishing, flipping and, fishing largemouth and thick cover, but all the people that I fish with, I've never seen them flip a tube. They're always flipping like a beaver or like something just generic. And guess what? They catch fish too. But the tube for me, I think it's just a confidence thing too. It's just so random, and it worked really good. I caught 3 or 4 fish like in a few hours flipping a tube. And we were fishing the same spots we were fishing a bunch of other baits, and it wasn't as productive. Maybe it was just that day, but it just made me really think about adding this to my arsenal as a regular thing that, maybe I have tied on right at the beginning of the day. So
it's kind of like a good mix of a reaction bait and also something that has a slower fall rate too, though.
Yeah.
That covers kind of both, which is something that I like. So I'm going to be definitely doing this more. But yeah, because I'm not as proficient with reaction style like flipping, but this I feel I'd have a lot more confidence in off the get go, just because it's like I said, you can swim it in. You have a lot more versatility.
It's like it's power fishing or power flipping, but it's subtle.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is too, I was fishing this area where there was some stumps, there was lily pads. So I was like flipping it in lily pads, fishing around stumps, and then there was a big like shoal, like a gravel shoal. And then I literally was using a flipping stick, and I just flipped it on top of the shoal, and I just like kind of dragged it and popped it along the shoal, and I caught a fish. Yeah. Like it literally will catch anything, smallmouth, largemouth.
And you can, it's still a tube jig, so you can fish it like you've always fished your other tube jigs. You don't need to rig another
but
one.
It's completely weedless. Yeah. Now there is a specific way you have to rig these if you're going to use certain kinds of tubes, and they do recommend that if you're not going to buy a specialty tube hook, to use an extra wide gap hook. Like, you can get hooks that are like, EWG or extra wide gap. Then there's ones that are like called the Owner Extra Wide Gap Plus. They're even wider, and that's the one you want to use. So definitely check it out. For largemouth, for smallmouth, I even caught a pike on one when I was fishing. So they literally catch anything, and it's one of those baits that literally you can just fish as you're going along, and you can hit every piece of cover or every situation that you're going through. Rocks, logs, lily pads, slop. Doesn't matter. Just go right through. And one tip I would recommend is use a lot less weight than you think. Normally when I'm flipping like any other bait, I'm going to use, start at, 3/8 or half ounce weight. This one I'm using a 1/4 ounce, and I'd probably even go less than that. The tube weights that I got, these hooks with the weight inside, it's only 1/8 of an ounce, and they were fishing fantastically. So don't go too heavy on the weight. You want to not hinder that crazy random cool fall. So I think I shouldn't have told Andrew this tip, because we're going to go fishing this weekend, and he's probably going to try it. I'll be trying it, of course. But these techniques to tries are cool, but I feel like it may be giving the other person an advantage the next time we go fishing.
I'm also going to have front motor advantage when you go this time, because we're actually taking the canoe out. So.
Oh, yeah. True.
So moving on to, actually, before we go into the main topic, I'm going to announce who this episode sponsor is this week.
Drum roll, please.
That was way off beat. You probably can't hear that. I just made like a really weird face for those watching. If you are only listening to this, go on YouTube and look at my weird face.
I don't recommend
Jesse
it.
might cut that out. Thank you, Jesse.
Don't recommend it.
So, the episode sponsor is Hashimoto Concepts.
Ooh, how'd you get him?
I just messaged him.
Okay.
I love his stuff. So, we met at CanCast. We talked about him a few times before on the episode, or on the podcast. The giveaway, there's a couple different things that he's giving away. So some of his custom plastics that he has, they're really interesting. I don't know if you've seen them. We saw some at CanCast.
Very unique.
They're like a little shark with like a huge eye. There's some pretty cool rubber plastics that he has. So he's going to throw an assortment of a couple of those in with the giveaway. The main giveaway will be announced at the end of the episode as to what he's giving away. Now, stay tuned, because if you can tell by my excitement, it's something that I wish that I could get.
Yeah.
And I know Jesse does too. I showed him a picture of it. He just finished clear coating this like a couple days before this recording, and sent me a photo like, this is the bait that's going to be for the giveaway. It looks awesome.
It looks
awesome.
sick.
And if you know anything about him, if you've seen his stuff before,
He's
know
an
that his paint jobs are like top tier.
Yeah.
So we'll announce what bait is going to be in the giveaway. And again, it's his custom bait he has designed from the ground up.
Yep. That's the problem with these giveaways. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's great. I can't believe, I get to enter these giveaways." And we're just sitting here like, well, we don't. But
So the main topic, unbelievable fishing lore, part 2. So I wanted to start off
spooky.
unbelievable fishing lore. So I wanted to start off with something that it's been done to death. So I figure we'll get it out of the way. People keep asking us to cover it.
Yeah.
So bananas on the boat. That is a very popular superstition.
Yeah.
About like, oh, it's bad luck to have bananas on the boat. Jesse and I don't believe that.
No.
Like,
Actually,
we went fishing one time, and Jesse, end of the day, he's like, oh, look what I have. Pulled just a banana out of his lunchbox, and I'm like, that was a great day we had fishing, wasn't it?
It's a good day. Andrew caught his PB muskie. Actually, the last time I went fishing, I had a really good day, and I ate a banana right in the middle of the day in the boat.
So if you don't know us, we're not superstitious at all.
We're not superstitious. We're a little stitious, though. If you get that quote, we can be friends.
Oh, boy. I don't know if I can anymore. So, bananas in the boat. So, we've often heard, I'm sure most of you listening have heard that before. But what I did was I looked up potential origin theories as to why that is a superstition. Why people think that they are bad luck to have in a boat or a bad omen. So, I have 6 different theories, and I want you, Jesse, to tell me which one do you think is most, or each one, tell me if you think it's plausible or not.
Okay.
So
and how many of these are true?
One. Well, one is the most plausible. Okay. Others are theory. They're all theories.
Oh, okay. They're all theories.
They're all theories.
I got you. This isn't an actual
so there's
test.
no like 100% this is it. There's one that is kind of recognized as most likely that's the one. So
okay.
We'll see if you can pick that one up. So first, when bananas are being transported on the big wooden vessels back in the day, when a ship sank, the bananas would float. So when sailors would come across a bunch of bananas in the water, it's like that was a ship that sank, and all it's showing is the cargo that floated, which was bananas. That's one theory for why they're viewed as a bad omen. Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, if you saw like the remains of some terrible catastrophe that killed a bunch of people in the water, you might be like, oh, that's bad luck. Right?
The thing for me is like, was it only bananas that floated? I'm pretty sure pretty much all fruits float. So if they're transporting anything else as well, that would be with them. So why just bananas? I don't know. That's a theory. Theory number 2. While shipping the bananas, they would have venomous spiders and snakes that would be in with the bananas on board, and they would subsequently bite the crew, and they would get very ill or die sometimes.
I could see that, but what does that really have to do with fishing?
Yeah. And it's not so much fishing. Bananas on the boat is just for like boating. It's not just for fishing.
Oh, okay.
So bananas on a boat is viewed as a bad omen whenever.
Okay, I can see that then.
The third theory is that bananas, they spoil rather quickly, and ships they had to travel so fast in order to prevent these bananas from spoiling that the fishermen that are on board couldn't fish effectively and couldn't feed the crew, and so the crew would starve.
So they
I can't get straight. I read that and I was like, what?
They're like, we'll starve even though the boat is full of bananas. Okay, I don't believe that. Andrew's a terrible liar.
How fast is this boat going? This like old wooden boat that they can't fish effectively. Have you seen how they fish for like saltwater fish? Like they have their bait skidding on top of the water. Like, all right. Fourth one. The bananas would secrete ethylene gas, causing other food on board to spoil.
Yeah. Boring.
Yeah. The fifth one. The crew would eat the bananas and then would subsequently litter bananas on board, banana peels, and they would slip and fall. I laugh because that's just like classic comedy.
Yeah. I'm sure the crew is just eating bananas and just chucking the peels right on the deck, right on the poop deck. Mr. Krabs would not be happy.
And the sixth one is that banana residue on the hands would hinder fishing. So that's why, with fishing, why it's,
I could see that.
So which one of those 6, which one do you think is the most logical?
I'd like to think the first one with the sinking ships and seeing the floating bananas. Like that sounds the most spooky to me. And then probably the spider one after that.
The spider one was an interesting theory. They actually say that it's the fact that they secrete ethylene gas causing the other food to spoil. Because you think of, this is the whole point of like trade. The reason why they're transporting these goods is to sell. So if you have a bunch of bananas that rot, they're the first thing to rot. And then with all this rotting food on board, it makes all the other produce that you brought rot. That's a huge hit to the pocketbook. So the theory is that they didn't like transporting. They didn't think it would be a good, valuable trip because the bananas would essentially hurt their bottom line in the end. So that's supposedly the most logical or most agreed upon theory for why that's bad luck. But again, the other theories are pretty reasonable. I don't believe that it's luck or superstition that caused that. It's just, hey, this generally happens because we saw a banana and now all of a sudden, it's bananas, they're to blame. So next up we have, this is a mythical creature. Okay. Actually, not so much a mythical creature, just a legendary creature. So Jesse and I have talked for years. We have talked about this oftentimes at the cottage we used to fish at growing up. It is called the legend of the Big Kahuna.
Yep.
So I remember one day we were at the cottage and Jesse's like, "Oh yes, we're gonna catch the Big Kahuna today." Yep. It just came out of nowhere, and I was like, "What?"
You're like, "What's that?" It's like, "Oh."
Describe to us, Jesse, what is the Big Kahuna?
Okay, so a little backstory here. So we're fishing Andrew's cottage, and the pike there aren't that big. Like, if you caught a 30-incher...
To this date, the biggest pike I pulled out of there has been 32 inches.
Okay, so, like, not a bad size, but not giant by any means. And it's a big, deep river, and we're always like, man...
Over 100 feet deep in places.
There's got to be some big pike in here. There's got to be, right? And we fished for years there. And again, the biggest pike we caught would be like just over 30 inches, which at the time when you're a kid, that's a giant fish. Yeah. But one year, the water was high. And we actually got the boat up into an area that we normally couldn't get into when the water's lower. And we were fishing this like random little spot.
There's a place that was cut off. So it's all on a river. And there's one place that was essentially cut off from boat access. Yeah. Because the water was high, there's one little channel that you could kind of now get the boat through. Yeah. So we went into this little like back bay. So it's essentially like a big reef in front. And as soon as you get past it, it drops back down to like 10, 12 feet behind. Almost completely cut off from the river.
Yeah. So we're fishing in there, and at the time, like we were just using, I think I was using a Williams wobbler.
I was using my big Williams wobbler too.
Yeah. And we're fishing, and I hooked this fish.
12-inch leaders, 12-inch wire leaders. 12-inch we always fished
wire leader, yep.
Because the 23-inch pike were biting past the 6-inch wire leaders.
Yeah. So I chucked out my spoon, and I thought I hooked the bottom, because it was just like hook set, and then just complete, just weight. And I'm just reeling in, and I realized that I had a fish on. And then all of a sudden, my line just, twing, it just snapped. And I looked at my leader, and the leader had been bitten in half. And I was like, oh my goodness. Then Andrew's like, look down. And there's this huge pike. It was well over 40 inches.
We were fishing out of a 12-foot tenor.
Yeah.
And it was, because Jesse was at the back, or in the middle of the boat, I think. And it had come up, surfaced right beside the boat. And its tail was at the bow, and it was almost reaching it was well past the front seat.
Yeah.
And almost to the middle seat of that boat.
My estimate was it was in the low 40s. It was a big fish. And I, at the time,
healthy too, thick.
Like, I know there are places in Ontario where you can catch fish that big all the time, but where that is unheard of.
Yeah.
The biggest pike are literally not only way shorter than that, but also way thinner than that. This fish was thicker than my upper leg, and we literally just like crapped our pants. And Andrew, like, I didn't have a lure on because it bit me off, and Andrew was just fiercely casting, but the thing literally was like...
just after it's bit through your leader, we stayed in the area for another like 2 hours casting around.
We were
like, this is here, like we have to catch this.
Yeah.
So I was casting out my Williams wobbler, and it was the big size, the 4-inch one or whatever, or the 5-inch one. And I was using a 12-inch wire leader, and I did get bit, and it bit past the 12-inch leader.
Yeah, it must have been
because it just nailed. Because I looked, the knot didn't pull out of my line. I knew how to tie a knot at the time, and the line was cut. Like there was no like of the curly end of the knot pulling out. It wasn't like fray. Like it was like cut.
Yeah.
So it's my belief that it literally bit past the 5-inch spoon and the 12-inch leader and just like came up behind, just ate it because it was instant. Just set the hook, it was gone completely.
Yeah, just instant snap.
Which happened to Lewis a lot. Like I knew what a pike did, so for me that wasn't the only abnormal part of it. Was that was a huge length to be bitten off.
Yeah, it was a huge fish.
Yeah.
Just I still think of that fish to this day. It was just like mind-blastingly big.
Yeah,
like whenever you see a big muskie swim by the boat, and you're just like, oh,
yeah,
it was like that, but it was a pike.
Yeah, no, it blew my mind. And we'd seen some decent ones sunning themselves in some shallow bays and stuff up there as well.
Yeah.
There were times I've only seen it twice in my life, but there'll be like a big like a bug hatch or something like that, or for some reason it's just they're eating bugs in the top of the water that evening, and you'll see like the bass come up and they'll eat, and then you see pike coming up, and they come up and you see like the head. You see them take it, and you just see like the body rolling on the surface, and then you see like the tail come down, the back dorsal fin, and then the tail come.
Yeah,
just rolling on the top of the water,
just like a sea monster.
Yeah, and I remember I was looking, and you see the pike, and you see these 20 inchers coming, and I saw one, and it just comes up, and it grabs a fly, and it just keeps going, and going, and going, and it just like comes up slow, and the length of it, and just like, oh, there's the fin, and there's the tail. Like this thing was abnormally long. I was like, what? So I know that that's the other time that I've seen like evidence of a large pike in that river. So again,
they're in
100% they are in there. We've seen one, but that is the big kahuna.
Yeah.
And just so you know, it exists on every single body of water.
Yeah.
There is a big kahuna.
It's like James Bond. It's a different fish, but they're all named the same thing.
So another myth. This is a thought to be a mythical creature. However, in recent times has shown to actually exist.
Oh.
So a lot of people said that it's impossible to find a wife that will still let you go fishing. Well, guess what? I did it.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks, Britt. You let me go fishing pretty much whenever I want.
Except for tomorrow. Just kidding. Yeah. You can find a suitable mate out there that'll let you fish.
Yeah. Just because you get married doesn't mean your fishing days are over.
Yeah. And usually
If
people
you choose
that tell
well,
you that,
yeah, they
married
chose
some
poorly.
wacko.
You chose poorly.
I think I told that to my wife before we got married. I was like, I'm going to go fishing all the time. And she was like, I'm chill with that.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let's get married. I flipped a ring at her. Just kidding.
It was on the end. She started like pulling it towards. He's like, haha. She reached for it, started reeling in.
Yeah. Actually, during our wedding dance, our first dance, remember I had that fishing thing where I reeled my wife in? It was hilarious. Anyway, that's for another story.
All right. So now that was a little teaser. Now on to an actual cryptid, a mythical creature. So this isn't based in Ontario. This is based in British Columbia.
Whoa. This is an Ontario fishing pod? Just kidding. Go ahead.
But it's about Canada. I figured I'll keep it somewhat local-ish.
Okay.
It's like, it's only, what, a 4-hour drive away.
To British Columbia?
4-day drive. My bad.
How fast are you driving? Holy crap.
So it's in Okanagan. It's found in Okanagan Lake in British Columbia. The name is Ogopogo.
Ogopogo.
So first of all, about the lake, it's 127 kilometers long, or 79 miles.
That's a big lake.
With a maximum depth of 232 meters, or 762 feet.
Dang.
Now, an average depth, so that's max, an average depth of this lake is 75.9 meters, or 249 feet, is the average.
Wow.
That's crazy. So, could a body of water like this hold a giant mythical creature?
Yes.
Absolutely, it could.
Well, look at the Loch Ness.
Yeah. So, the Ogopogo is described as a serpentine creature with smooth, dark skin, thicker than a telephone pole, thicker than a sneaker.
The skin is thicker than a telephone pole?
No, just
the whole body.
The whole body.
I was going to say,
but
that's one chunky fish.
50 feet long and incredibly quick. So the Aboriginals called Naitaka, or the water god or water demon. It was believed that to go on this body of water on the lake, that this water god would require a live sacrifice for safe crossing. And for hundreds of years, First Nations people would sacrifice animals before entering the water on this lake. In fact, there was a chief, Timbasket, rejected the sacrifice, denying the existence of this water god, entered the lake on a canoe with his family. Then it said that Ogopogo whipped up the surface of the water and they were sucked to the bottom of the lake. Did that happen? I don't know. But when people have talked about it, they have some videos, they have some photos about it, and they are saying that the most likely fact of it that it's misidentified, and they claim that it is most likely either multiple waterfowl, otters, or beavers. That's a little less exciting.
Yeah.
But if you have like multiple things in a row swimming on the water, you're gonna have like what could be like a serpentine creature going through the water, but you just have like 4 beavers in a row.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll tell you, if I was in a canoe and I just had like a row of otters swimming frantically towards me, I'd be terrified.
100% otters are scary. Even beavers, you get too close, they just like
Smack their
smack
tail.
the water. Oh, it's so loud and
You get
terrifying.
6 of those in a row that do it, start a tsunami.
So that is Ogopogo, which we had a couple of requests for as well.
Ogopogo,
But that's probably, I think that's one of the biggest of the cryptids in Canada for these water dwelling. But well, I think any, because there's not really big land cryptids.
No.
There's the Thunderbird, which is huge. Maybe we'll talk about that one, another one.
Yeah. Part 3.
There have been occurrences with fishermen claiming to have seen the Thunderbird. Ooh,
A lot of drunk fishermen
that'll be in lore number 3.
have seen a lot of things after a few beers.
So, the last thing that I have here for fishing lore is, are there monsters in Ontario? So we talked before about Beaverton Bessie, about Kingsty. We have, there's another one that's up in Muskrat Lake. There's a few cryptids around, but I was thinking of, what about misidentification? Are there actual confirmed monsters, potentially, in our lakes? So some of the biggest fish that we have are long-nosed gar is one.
Yep.
Lake sturgeon is probably the biggest one that we have in our waters. And another one that I thought perhaps could be, because I didn't know too much about them, the American eel. We have the American eel, and it used to be a lot more prevalent throughout Ontario waters back in the day. Even right through Algonquin Park until they were fished out of American eels. I thought some American eagles. It's like,
I was like, there's one of those at the mall. That's where Andrew gets his clothes.
not the apparel company, you fool. So freshwater eel, they generally range from 8 inches to 3 inches, or 8 inches to 3 feet in length. That's about the max they'll get. Now, this is what I always find weird, is because you look online and you'll say, oh, what is the average size, or what is the size range for this creature? And they'll tell you, oh, it's 8 inches to 3 feet long. Then you look, what was the biggest one ever found? Why isn't that dimension the max? Because it's estimated the largest one was weighed at 9 pounds. It wasn't directly measured, but it was approximately 6 feet long. That's double what apparently max length is on these things.
Yeah, that's probably just like the normal average, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can have creatures that are far larger than their maximum size. So we're going to have a little bit of a test here for you, Jesse.
Oh, great.
So first of all, long-nosed gar. How big do you think they grow?
In feet?
In feet.
Because
this
in
could
Ontario?
be in Ontario.
6 feet.
6.5 feet.
Oh, nice.
So that's pretty much the max one they've caught was 6.5 feet.
Yeah.
And it could be, think about a long-nosed gar, like they look insane. That thing, if you
They
were in a
look
canoe, a small
prehistoric.
body of water, or
Well,
small
we have,
boat.
remember?
Yeah. But if you saw a 6.5 footer,
Yeah.
and that thing's coming at you, and like you see like that huge row of teeth, those things look insane.
After a few beers, that could literally be a sea monster.
And the size of their scales too, they're huge. So a 6.5 footer is going to have massive scales. So if you, let's say, when it's overcast or something and you look in the water, especially if you don't have polarizers on, you'll see like 2 feet in and then you can't see the rest.
Yeah.
Or like how many times are you muskie fishing? You see like the head of the muskie, but you can't see its full length,
Yeah.
just the way the glare is. So if you had like a gar coming to you and all you see is just like a foot and a half of just jaw, and then it's just huge scales in this head, you have no idea how long. It could be like 20 feet long.
Yeah.
Because they're so like unproportionate. So if you've never seen a long-nosed gar and you think the mouth is that big, how long is the body?
Yeah.
That could 100%. I could see people saying, "Oh, it's some weird, sea monster." 100%, I could see that.
I would.
Now, the one I always attribute as the most likely thing to be a reasonable freshwater sea monster, essentially. We considered it as a theory for Kingsty.
Yeah.
Is the lake sturgeon. So
for sure.
So how big do you think the lake sturgeon can grow to? Now this is what the average max size, supposedly.
Okay. I want to say like the average max size is like 8 feet,
6.5 feet. So the lake
so
sturgeon
they're not huge.
are different than
white sturgeon.
White sturgeon we know can get like 12 plus feet. Like it's insane.
17 feet. Some of the big ones. Yeah.
So 6.5 feet. So same length as the long-nosed gar, but 200 pounds. Like they're a thick fish.
Yeah, they're not like snakes.
So that being said, I got real curious because I have been seeing too many different conflicting reports of other species where the largest one ever recorded was way bigger than their maximum. So I'm like, okay, what's the biggest lake sturgeon ever recorded in Canada? So this was caught found in the Rosso River in Manitoba. So this is not a misidentification of a white sturgeon. This the Rosso River actually connects, or Rousseau, I'm not sure. It connects to the Great Lakes, essentially. It doesn't connect to the Pacific Ocean, which is where where the native territory is for the white sturgeon.
Okay.
So they don't have them over there. They do have lake sturgeon all around through Manitoba down into the Great Lakes, all that stuff. So this is a lake sturgeon. It was found to be 4.6 meters or 15 feet long.
Well, yeah. So that's a sea monster.
That's like 15 feet for a lake sturgeon, and it weighed 185 kilograms or 407 pounds.
Yeah. That's
Now,
a giant.
If this thing was in the river in Manitoba, are you telling me that like one that size as well hasn't been in Lake Ontario or like Michigan Lake or like
Michigan Lake?
Lake Michigan?
Back to school. No, 100%. I've always
Lake
thought
Huron,
that
like
there has to be
there's always exceptions.
Giant, massive fish in Lake Ontario or Lake Superior. Like these are not small lakes. These are massive, huge bodies of water, especially like Superior and Ontario. Mm-hmm. They're deep. There's no way you could ever, scientists be like, there's no big fish out there. You don't know. You probably searched 5% of the whole lake.
Yeah. And another thing that they've found is lake sturgeon. So their numbers have greatly depleted because of overfishing. But one thing that they do is after their spawn, they come in real shallow and they will jump in the shallow water. So imagine like a 15-foot sturgeon in like shallow, let's say 20 feet of water, and all of a sudden you're like in a boat and just like whoosh, this thing like the size of a small whale jumps out beside you. That is a legit monster.
And breaks your canoe in half.
It could 100%.
Yeah.
100%. So could there be, could Nessie, or not Nessie, Kingsty have been a lake sturgeon?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it was.
Yeah, I think so too. That's
it's
you
not,
heard it here
it's
first.
Not illogical.
Confirmed. No.
Scientists are dumb. Listen to us.
Yeah. So that was interesting for me to find out that, again, like I remember river monsters and stuff like that. He'd be fishing for these insane stuff, and he had an episode fishing for white sturgeon, but I had no clue that the lake sturgeon, again, it was a freak of nature to be that big, but there was one that big.
Oh,
I find that exciting because the potential is we have huge bodies of water around us. There still could be one or two of these giants swimming around, potentially.
Well, you have to think, even with humans. So, like, say, generally, some cultures are known to be taller or shorter than others, but then you'll get a giant like Yao Ming. Okay, like, Yao Ming is, I don't even know how tall he is.
7'6" or something. Like
he's super tall. So, like, it happens with animals, too. So, like, we always think, like, okay, largemouth bass, the average size is, 2 pounds, pound and a half, 2 pounds. And in a big one in Ontario, you're looking at 5-6 pounds. Okay. Most people that fish largemouth have caught a 5 or 6 pounder over the years. They're not popular, but like you can catch them. Is there that mythical 10-pound largemouth in Ontario?
Yes.
I almost guarantee that there is a 10-pound largemouth somewhere in Ontario. It's just extremely rare, and you probably will never see it. It's probably in some like little back lake in the middle of nowhere where no one fished for it. There is a guy I follow on Instagram, and he's caught multiple 8-pound largemouth in Ontario. On a scale, 100% proven. They're out there. Yeah. They're just, you have to know where. And I guarantee, like, yeah, maybe there's one of them in the Kawartha Lakes, but like they're probably on some little tucked away, little non-pressured lake somewhere. But they're out there. They're freaks. They're just genetically designed, like, to grow that extra size that the other fish could never get to.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree that 100% the sturgeon is probably responsible. There's some, maybe there's multiple, maybe there's 2 or 3. It's a big lake.
Yeah.
That they're responsible for probably 95% of the sightings of like these giant sea monsters.
And the thing is too, they can live, both the gar and the sturgeon can live to be up to 150 years old.
Yeah, so these
and the gar themselves, they don't stop growing.
They've been freaking people out.
I don't believe either. Their growth rate, they don't just like drop off after a few years. Like they keep growing.
As long as they are alive and in good shape, they just keep growing.
Yeah.
So imagine this big 15-foot sturgeon in Lake Ontario. It's been freaking people out for 150 years.
Yeah.
So your great-great-great-great-grandfather crapped his pants when he saw that sturgeon.
And now you just did too.
I did too. Well, here's the thing. Like we were mentioning with the big kahuna, we saw this pike that was like over 40 inches. And we literally, our legs went to jelly.
Yeah.
Because at the time in that particular lake, it was a giant. Even like when we go muskie fishing, sometimes we'll have a big muskie follow in on the figure 8 and you're just literally, you're like, oh.
We had that recently.
Yeah.
Oh.
So imagine seeing a 15-foot fish. We're not talking like a 40-inch
so
muskie or 50-inch
like to experience that because you don't expect to see that in our waters at all.
This isn't like the Amazon River. So like you can definitely like, I literally, my legs go to mush when a 40-inch muskie comes up to the boat. So imagine literally a fish that's literally 3 to 4 times longer than that and 5 times as thick.
Yeah. Something that is as long as the boat you are in.
Something that could literally damage and capsize my boat and possibly kill me.
Yeah. Oh. You know. Imagine how much that thing would pee. No. Call back to a couple episodes ago.
Actually, I had a lot of people message me about that. Andrew's interesting fishing fact. Do fish pee? We'll have to do another one day because people liked it. It's pretty good.
I try and make them weird.
Yeah.
I got one coming up for the next episode, so stay tuned for that.
Weird.
So I wanted to bring it back to Hashimoto concepts.
Okay, let's talk.
Speaking of myths and legends, Hashimoto concepts. Brent, come on, he's a legend.
Yeah, he almost looks like a samurai.
Yeah,
yeah. A little hairdo.
His little hairdo.
Like I picture him just carving baits with some big swords. Like shing. You know how like you see like a samurai in the movies and they're just making this beautiful sword and it shows the guy just sweating making it over a period of days and then he puts it and it's perfect and he puts it in the sheath and then he hands it to like the emperor or something. That's Hashimoto making a bait and then when he gives it to you, when you open up that box, the presentation is amazing. It's literally like a sword.
It's in like a bed of like a nest. Just
and half of his baits look like swords. And guess what? Insane. They are equally as deadly.
Speaking of swords.
See what I did there?
Yeah. Speaking of swords, the bait that he is going to be including in the giveaway is a custom painted mag blade. Bringing it back to blades.
See?
So I actually have one. I picked one up at the CanCast in this past spring.
I'm kicking myself for not getting one because it looks sick. I'm not even just saying
the value of it's a fully custom swim bait. So he actually hand carves these molds or these the first bait. He hand carves, tests, and then he'll make a mold for it. And then he starts pouring it.
This isn't like legit knockoff city that you see everywhere
everything
else.
You see, like he actually carved it himself by hand
from his own idea,
and then he goes and paints it by hand.
Well, he doesn't use his feet, that's for sure. And if he does, that would be amazing.
Do it. All right, Brent, do a quick like one-time release of like the foot painted one.
This looks terrible.
So it's the mag blade, which is a single one segment in it, and it's really cool because it has a big treble hook in the front and a smaller treble hook on the back side of it that magnetizes to the back of the swim bait. And I've been fishing with this thing. I used it a couple times, and the first time out with it, I nailed like really nice largemouth bass on it.
Nice.
And it killed that thing. It's the same bait that I talked about. A loon chased it because it obviously looks so enticing that loons, which aren't easy to fool, was very interested in what this thing was.
And it's a glide bait.
Yeah.
In case you're wondering.
Yeah, and this thing, you can fish it quick. You can fish it. You can just pause it. You can twitch it in, like everything. This thing runs really well. And what Brent does to all his baits, he tests all of them. And I have a couple of them now, different baits for his, and they all run really, really well. Like, they are not just some like hack guys like, oh, I made this, I cut my broomstick in half and put hooks on it. Like, no, like, these are legit. He's tuned these things to actually run well. He puts a lot of effort into it. And the custom paint job he's done on it, I showed Jesse before how awesome that looks.
It looks amazing.
So it's a black crappie pattern. Mm-hmm. It looks so good. This is one of those things I'm like, can I enter my name in this giveaway? Because I want a chance to win this. Like, this looks so awesome.
Just like Andrew comes up with some fake name. It's like mustachy.
I'm having my wife enter for me. That's okay, right?
Yeah. No.
And like I said before, he's also putting in some of his custom soft plastics,
which are very cool. We looked at some of them at the show at CanCast.
Yeah,
very unique.
Especially if you want some like bigger ones too, because he's got some. Again, you haven't seen them before. They're custom. Like, I'm pretty sure he helped design them. I think.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he designed them.
Yeah.
Like, those big craws.
Yeah.
They're like almost like lobsters. But man, if you're going to try to catch that mythical 10-pound largemouth, that's what you want to use.
100%. 100%. So yeah, so I've really loved my mag blade. I've everything I've used from this guy has been legit. And if you aren't entering this giveaway, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
This is an opportunity to win a custom swim bait.
And I'm not even joking. Say you're literally like, you know what? I don't fish glide baits. I don't fish bass. Enter this giveaway. Get this bait, put it in a frame, and put it on your wall.
It's art.
They're art. Like, I'm not even joking. He has some much larger baits that are obviously a little more
Shogun,
expensive.
the Ono. I want one of those.
And they're so nice. I would not even want to use it. Like, I know he makes them to be used. Yeah. But they're literally pieces of art. Like, he has these baits, and his paint jobs are so legit. Like, remember that walleye paint job he did?
Yeah.
It literally, like, if I took off my glasses and looked at it, I think it was a fish.
Yeah.
They were so realistic. He also has a lot
of... he makes his baits to order, too. So he's one of the guys out there where if you are looking for a swim bait, even if you don't win the giveaway, I'm expecting potentially a lot of people to enter this one, I hope, because it's good. But if you don't win, check out his stuff. Whatever you're getting from him, he makes a lot of his stuff to order. So if you have, I want this in this pattern, just like how I'm looking for a specific Rapala, let's say, and you go and I want in perch color. I want the Shad Rap perch color. And you go and you find one like that. You're like, I want the mag blade, but I want it to be the color of a largemouth bass, or I want it to be a crappie, or whatever. It's like, he'll paint that up and custom. It's legit. Yeah. So,
and I would recommend too, if you're in Southern Ontario and you are going to go to CanCast next year coming up, 2024, I'm pretty sure Brent's going to be there again.
Yeah.
Definitely check out his booth. We went to his booth 3 or 4 times because we kept looking at stuff. I felt bad because, like, there was a lot of people at his booth and I kept, like, squeezing in looking at stuff. I'm like, this is sick.
Every time I go there, I'm seeing another paint job. I'm like, I need to get that one next.
Yeah. Also, we'd like to give a little shout out to Brent because Brent actually has a podcast called Made to Cast.
Yeah.
And if you're in... Well, if you like fishing in general, but also if you're in the bait making community, if you're someone that makes baits or plastics and stuff, he talks a bit about that. I actually had a few people asking me, it's like, can you guys do a podcast about bait making? I'm like, no, we don't know anything about that. Be like, well, and I always send them to Brent's podcast because I'm like, I don't know any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So definitely check out his podcast. We'll put the link to his podcast in the show notes below.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. So yeah, and if you are going to CanCast, make sure you bring extra money to spend at his booth. Yeah. And he also works a lot with Dangle Baits. Remember, at this past CanCast, he had special baits that had the Dangle Baits feathered hooks on the Hashimoto Concepts glide baits. Like, what a combo.
Yeah.
So anyways, I guess that's enough gushing for now. But I think he's deserving of it. The guy puts so much like sweat into that thing too.
Yeah.
And if you want to see the process too, he on his Instagram, you can see him, and he often he goes live and he's like painting these baits, and it's kind of interesting to see like how much effort goes into painting a single bait. It's like over an hour.
Yeah,
for a bait.
And that's why people are like, why are some of these custom baits so expensive? It's like, you're not paying for the piece of plastic. You're paying for all the time involved in making this bait.
Yeah.
the carving the original, the pouring the resin, sanding off the edges, painting it, priming it, painting it, putting on the hooks, like all this process. It's not like it takes them half an hour to make these baits.
No.
It's hours.
And the thing is, too, you look at people that or companies that manufacture baits like this. They have like factories that do this, and yeah, they're tank tested or hand tuned or whatever afterwards. But that level of workmanship doesn't go into them, and they're still selling. Like, how much is a glide bait? Your average glide bait is what?
Well, it depends. A cheap one is like $30 to $50,
right? That's a cheap one.
Yeah.
You know what he sells the mag blade for? I think it's like $45-$50. I think at CanCast it was $45 he was selling them for.
That's not bad.
That's for a custom one of a color that you get to choose.
That's amazing.
Like originally hand carved. Like, this is stuff you don't get. That's an amazing price. So like, look at the value that you're getting from this guy. You can't beat it.
Yeah. And glide bait fishing, just as a slight off topic here, the baits are expensive. And you might be one of those kind of people that's like, you know what, I would never spend $30 on a bait. I would never spend $50. People spend thousands of dollars on glide baits.
Yeah.
I would never do that myself,
Yeah.
but I have
muskie guys, like when they go to the muskie shows and they buy like muskie glide baits, they'll consistently, the guys will regularly be spending hundreds, like $400, $600, $800,
Yeah.
over $1,000 on baits they're throwing for muskie.
Yeah.
Let alone the ones that are like one-offs painted and they just haven't to collect.
Yeah.
They are like literally fishing baits that cost upwards of $1,000. Like that blows my mind. I can't afford that. But yeah, if you get a good bait,
Usually these people
They
are
work
employed by the mob. But yeah. But what I was going to say is, like, glide baits, they're expensive, yes. If you find one that's reasonably priced, the cool thing about glide baits is they're really fun to fish.
Yeah.
They're fun. And they also catch bigger fish than average. So if you are fishing a lake, and in the Kawarthas, again, we always say we're fishing the Kawarthas. Again, there's not a lot of massive bass in the Kawarthas compared to other places. But a few years ago, I started getting into glide baits, and like nothing fancy. I'm just talking like S wavers and Stormer Rashis and stuff like that. You know, we're talking $30 to $50 baits. And I caught some of the biggest bass of my life in those times that I was fishing those baits. You may go extended periods of time without catching fish, but you will eventually connect with the biggest fish in the lake.
when you get bit, it's big bites.
It's a big one, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm fishing a 6.5 inch glide bait, and you'll catch a 5-pound smallmouth.
If you want to catch the mythical 10-pound largemouth,
Throw a big glide bait. But yeah, it might be something that, you know, you might want to get into, and you're like, you know what, I want to support a local bait maker, and I want to get my first glide bait. Definitely check out.
and it's not the other thing that I because I've only recently gotten into it. One of the coolest things with glide bait fishing is we should do a whole episode on glide bait fishing, which we probably will at some point.
We're like, we don't know anything
We're talking
about
about all this stuff, but they get destroyed. Like when the fish hit this, they try and kill it. I've never had a bite in a glide bait being like, oh, they just kind of nipped at it.
Yeah.
Like they aim for the head and they
headshot
kill
it.
that thing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most exciting things, because when you get bit, like,
Yeah.
it's not like crankbait fishing.
No.
So yeah.
Oh, it's crazy.
Anyways,
But yeah,
get into it, and again, this is a great option because a mag blade, I can't remember the exact weight. I think it's only like an ounce and a bit.
it's a smaller glide bait.
Yeah.
It's a good one. You could just throw on your regular tackle you already own. You don't need a special.
It's only a
swim bait
5-inch glide bait.
Yep.
But I say only, like, so for a lot of people that seems like big, but it's not. It's not overly heavy. Runs really good. I love that bait.
Yeah.
I'm
And
going to be using it a lot more this year.
we're going to be filming some content of the thing underwater. Like when we go on our camping trip, we're going to have a lot of time to film. So we're going to do that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love supporting these guys and girls that literally, they're local. They have such passion. They don't just sell like junk. They're like, I make this. This is my product. It's amazing. They're proud of it. Like, look at these guys posting. Like, they make product that's legit good, and they're obviously proud to show it off. It's not like just junk that they're shipping in from China. This is like handcrafted, amazing stuff. So definitely check it out. And again, like we always say, if you buy a bait from any big brand, they don't care. But if you buy something from a small manufacturer or a small business, they do a happy dance. I would love to see Brent do a happy dance. So please buy a bait from him. And if you do happen to buy a bait from Brent, tell him we sent you, even if you were already going to buy one before.
The other thing too I wanted to mention is we have complete brain fart. You ever had that, Jesse? Where you just can't remember anything you just were going to say?
What?
That's what it was. All right. with fishing lore, these are some of the episodes that take some of the most research to do. Because a lot of the stuff Jess and I just banter on, these aren't so much our stories. These are research stories. So if we did have on our Instagram a little while ago on a story requesting if anyone has any suggestions for fishing lore, mythical creatures, or even topics is fine.
Yep.
But primarily for episodes like this, it's hard for me to think. I have to think of something and then do all the research for it and then write it down. And I'm not the best at it. So if you guys could help me out.
Yeah. So if you have maybe like the Big Kahuna, something that me and Andrew came up with, if you have something similar,
I'd love to get some more original stuff.
Something that may sound dumb to you, but it's a little elaborate story that you and your fishing buddies came up with. Either record a video, a voice memo, and send it to us, or type something out. Yeah, and we'd love to feature that on our next podcast.
Send it to AoA, AoA_Andrew, or send it to our direct message on Average Ontario Anglers.
Yeah.
So either one, get in contact with us. We'd love to hear stuff like that because we'd love to be able to feature some of those things on our show.
Yeah. Before we end, we have some AoA news.
Yes.
AoA news.
That's the little like.
Okay. I thought that was like from one of those like murder shows. Okay. So anyway, we just like to keep everyone updated with the podcast. We know a lot of you guys and girls listen to the podcast, and we do get a lot of messages, which is nice, saying, that you listen. We get a lot of people like, it makes my commute great in the morning. And it just seems weird to me because I never thought that anyone would find listening to me and Andrew talk interesting, but apparently over 2,000 people a week listen to us. So that's amazing. So we'd like to say thanks for that. We hit our milestone of 2,000 people a week downloading our show.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. We're hoping that, it'll just continue to grow and we'll be able to get some bigger, sponsors to make some juicy, giveaways. Yep. And like we said before, we always like to keep this podcast ad free. And then when we do work with sponsors like Hashimoto, we're not getting compensated for this. He's donating a giveaway for you guys. So if you would actually like to support the show, we do have a Patreon link. You can find the support show link down below in the show notes. Yep. There's a few people already that are helping us cover the expenses already for a lot of the equipment and subscriptions that we have for different editing software.
The monthly subscriptions we have in order to edit the podcast. Yeah, it's an ongoing expense. So we appreciate the help we have received for that.
We have a few people already that are helping us put a dent in that. So we would like to thank you. You know who you are. Appreciate that. And we'll hand the show back over to Andy. The other news too is we record 2 weeks ahead. So as you're listening to this, it'll be slightly different, but we just hit 22,000 followers on Instagram.
Nice.
Today. Yeah.
A lot of twos.
2-2.
Episode. It's the second fishing lore.
It's episode 21 though.
But next week is 22.
I should have announced it next week, but by then we'll be bigger. But anyway, if you follow us on Instagram, which I highly recommend, we'd like to thank you for supporting us all these years. And it's been fantastic, and we're hoping to keep going and annoying you guys for more years to come.
So you've heard my voice for 2 weeks in a row now, and I'm sure you're absolutely sick of it. But I'm back next week, but as this co-host. So yeah, Jesse will be taking the lead next week on a very exciting topic, which will be announced on the next episode.
We don't want to whet their appetite?
Well, you can if you want.
Okay.
I mean, we know what it is. It's up to you if you want to keep their suspense waiting for a whole week.
I'll let you know, because we announced that the next episode was going to be frogs before, and people were like, I can't wait for that.
All right, so let's get some good hype going.
I was just saying to Andrew, summer is almost over. Yeah. It flies by. And I was looking at our podcast schedule, and I was like, holy crap, we have not done an episode on flipping and pitching.
Yeah, he was going to do one on ice fishing, and I'm like, let's do it kind of seasonal.
Yeah. So next week, tune in for flipping, pitching, and punching with your favorite flipping, pinching, and punching. Pinching?
Pinching?
No pinching. No pinching.
It's like, you wonder why I haven't gone fishing with him for a while, and,
Yeah. Too many pinches. But anyway, flipping, pitching, punching, mostly largemouth fishing. I'm really excited for that, so stay tuned for that.
100%. So thank you again all for listening. Thanks for doing those final announcements for us, Jesse. And keep your lines tight, everyone. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Average Ontario Fishing Podcast.